Okay, got it. Welcome, everybody. This meeting is being recorded. I'm glad everyone is here can make it today. We are going to have 3 people out today, maybe 4. Anyway, once again, we're going to go through and please introduce yourself according to the record. Sarah begins.
Thank you, Will. Sarah Frost, Library Director.
Ila Skyburn, Council Representative.
Capola Napoleon, Library Board.
I'm Tyler Crook, the co-chair.
Emily Sims, Library Board.
Oh.
Will.
Good. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you here. Tracy and Dave and Robin Onsot won't be attending this meeting today. So next, do we have any additions or questions to or changes to the agenda for today? Okay, moving right along. The approval of the meetings from the minutes from September 21st.
I move to accept
I move to-
Those minutes.
I heard a
Okay, we have a
motion.
motion and a second. Okay, thank you very
Second
much.
the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, next is reports. The library director report. This is specifically the state statistical report.
Yes. Yeah, and just to know, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. I've got a motion by Tyler and a second by Capola on the approval of the meeting minutes for September. Okay, thank you. So yes, so I apologize for getting the information out to you all very last minute, specifically yesterday. But this report tends to take a lot of hours in October to get complete. And I was still waiting on finalizing some information. So I summed it up as best as I could for you guys, especially since we have new members to the library board this year. I really wanted to briefly capture kind of the story that has been our story, I guess, especially during this pandemic, and how that story has been reflected in our numbers, but also hopefully when looking in the numbers, you were able to see some of our success that was in that as well. So in the brief summary, before I kind of go into the report itself, did anybody have any questions that they would like to ask me about the fiscal year starting 2019, 2020, and then up to where we are now? Or hopefully that all kind of made sense for you guys.
Yeah, I thought it was laid out very nice and clear.
Thanks, Tyler. Good. So knowing where we were then and where we are now, of course, what's so wonderful about this report, right, is we've always used it as a benchmark to see where our opportunities are and definitely where our strengths are. And sometimes the numbers don't tell the story. The story really has to be reflected, I think, in the numbers, like I was saying. So we have been closed officially for an entire year, the fiscal year. So now we're back opened, maybe not to the extent of services that all of our libraries would like to be seeing right now, but to some extent. But one of the reasons why we held off for so long and did not open up services again until July was so that I would have a very clear picture of where one point began and where it ended, which was why we just took the closure all the way to June 30th. Was basically for my sanity in doing this report, so the numbers would be true. So the success I want to really focus on right now is, right, our financials. We didn't take any hits. We did slow down spending a little bit in that 2019-2020 year, right, when everybody was a little bit uncertain, and you saw there was a dip and where we were spending some money. But once we knew everything was going to be okay, we just ramped back up, and our money was coming in just as fluidly as our money was going out. And so our finances did not, and that's not a true representation of libraries across the board, right? So this speaks very well to the management of our finances at both the city level, right? And then of course at the local level inside the library as well. So the other huge success for us, as much as we missed our volunteers during the year, because we rely on them so much when we are ramped up to full services, is Carla, our library assistant, and myself really had to take charge of what all those other volunteers were doing with that extra 100 hours they were giving us every month, because we were so used to having them as part of that workflow and process. We had to kind of take control of that. And even though at the end of the previous fiscal year, there was a chunk of time where we were not moving product within the CCRLS system, we did pick that back up because we realized we needed to get items into the hands of people, however we were going to do that. At times, it actually meant when the truck was not moving, we had librarians meeting at locations to exchange materials. So librarians never stopped during the pandemic. We picked right back up by the end of March when everything closed down, and we just kept going. So that is very telling in how librarians really want to make sure they're able to serve their communities however best that they can. So one of my favorite numbers in this report is if you look down into circulation and you see 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down is ILLs to libraries and CCRLS. So that's interlibrary loans within our consortium. And that is how many items from our library made it into the hands of other libraries users. And as you can see, that number is very comparable to the year before. And that was a lot of what we were doing. I'm pretty sure our entire workflow and processes have changed because of that particular item in our workflow. So we were really moving around the product that was moving in and out of the library. And for a long period of time, that included quarantining items too. So our workflows have changed. They have definitely gone on that roller coaster ride from, when we were quarantining items for 2 weeks, we were quarantining items for 1 week. Then we were like, oh no, we can quarantine items for 3 days. So our processes have continued to change greatly over the course of an entire pandemic year. So, and of course, the really huge success is we kept providing programs. Obviously not at the level that we would like to or would have liked to, but the fact that we still pulled off 83 programs, mostly virtual, with the exception of 2 towards the end of the pandemic year, for us, it just speaks volumes to how engaged we remained with our community. And I'm very grateful for all the work that the youth services coordinator at that time, and then my library assistant, Carla, put into all that work, because circulation is definitely Carla's forte, and a lot of those programs, with the exception of just a handful that I handled, were definitely all Miss Nicole, who was youth services at the time. So that's a brief update, I guess, as to the numbers and the passion behind the numbers and me wanting to share those with you. But I, of course, also want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions about the numbers, especially if you want to understand them more. And then I should also say, if at any time anyone is ever interested, I do have the full report here. And I also keep a comparison of one year over the other that I have available as well. And then another thing that I have access to is also my peer-to-peer comparisons. So the only other library in CCRLS that I'm really compared to as far as just population served and size and impact is Dayton. They're a lot more closer to us as far as numbers to numbers when looking at just the statistics, but I can also provide comparisons to the other member libraries as well. So before I keep rattling on about what this kind of means for us and moving forward, does anybody have any questions about these numbers or the 2021 library year? No, you guys are going to make this easy on me. Well, hopefully I put the information out well, so that, I mean, it was really, hopefully it was easy to read, and it created a good snapshot. You know, I remember when we got to the 2018-2019 year, because we've been ramping up, right, since I started in 2016, and then of course, just like all libraries, were like, oh, the pandemic, our numbers, but then we stopped worrying about the numbers and we started worrying about the humans, right, and that engagement level. So that helped alleviate some of that oh no, what's this going to mean for us financially, because we're here to serve our communities, not worry about the 5 books that go out in the next 10 minutes. So all right, well, so what this means for us going forward. Oh yeah, Tyler, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, the electronic materials, what platforms do we use for that?
Yep. So, the largest platform our patrons have access to is the Oregon Digital Consortium. I'm pretty sure that's correct. However, so how we access that is through Libby is the app that I would recommend our patrons to go and download. And so the way that works is, so while these are not necessarily local, I'm not purchasing these, right? These are offered through the CCRLS level again, right? So what comes out of the budget at the CCRLS level is a buy-in to that digital consortium, and then all of our patrons have access to that information. And other electronic materials too that were included in this year's reporting was Canopy, which is our video streaming services. So, right, so the Oregon Digital Consortium and Libby is going to give people access to ebooks, audiobooks, and digital magazines. And then we also have the video streaming services of Canopy, which we can now report on accurately as well. Again, all paid for at the CCRLS level, but we're able to see benefits from that too, because our electronic material circulation, I mean, it may only be 2,500 at our local level, but that's still a good chunk of circulation of electronic materials. So yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes, totally. Thank you.
Any other questions about any of these numbers? No? Okay, so what this kind of means moving forward. So obviously there is going to be some financial impact to the library moving forward. And what that looks like is how CCRLS, their formula for reimbursement to the city levels out of that pot of taxpayer money that is filtered through them. So 50% of that is based on non-resident circulation. So all of our libraries is going to see a difference in our circulation levels after this as we go into the next budget year. So it's not an immediate hit, it's a filtered hit. So we have to wait a whole year before we see how the numbers are going to impact us. So while there will be that little bit of financial hit, we won't necessarily see a hit to the overall pot because we really didn't see any misses, I guess you could say, at the tax level time, right? So far people have been paying their taxes and that money is still filtering in, and CCRLS with Chemeketa is able to still filter that money back out to us. So there hasn't been any hiccups in the financial streamline of money coming in so that CCRLS can disperse that. So I have the pleasure of serving on the CCRLS budget committee. I represent the small libraries on that committee. So once we start our budget committee meetings, which will probably start as early as sometime next month, we'll be able to really take a deeper look at what that reimbursement pot is going to look like, so we can start planning out what the reimbursements are going to look like for our member libraries for the 2021-2022 year. So does that make sense a little bit as far as the financials coming in? So there's that piece of it. And then the other piece of it too is really taking a look at what services, well, let me back up a little bit. This is a great time to kind of just start fresh and say, what does our community need from us now, and what will our community need from us post pandemic, coming out of the pandemic. And so right now we've identified a huge need amongst our teens and programming for our teens and youth services needs. So working with our partners at YCAP, Yamhill Community Action Partnership, and making sure that we're able to connect with families and our youth who need more of that resource guidance, I guess you could say. So that's a big piece we're focused on right now, and we're trying to offer some programming services to our teens. And then we are, of course, working on our digital stuff through the ARPA grant that I reported on last month. And then really it's going to be getting out into the community and finding ways to bring people back into the library versus just expecting them to come back, right? So that's going to be a lot of where we're looking at in the next, I would say, a year and a half, because just like it when I first came on board 5 years ago, you got to get your traction. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now and with my team. Questions about any of that? No? Maybe? Yes, Tyler, you go.
I guess, like, what kind of outreach are you thinking of? Like, how does that really work? Is that just all on Facebook nowadays, or?
No, ideally, our biggest outreach opportunity has been and always will be, I think, with the school district, right? So I've already been in touch with the fourth grade teacher who I work with up there. And he sent me a message while I was on my vacation time last week saying, when can we get you back for another virtual field trip? So he'd like to see me sometime before the end of the year. So again, continuing to make sure we have those connections at the school level, I think will be essential in our outreach. And even after, I cannot wait to get back into those classrooms. So that was one of the things that I absolutely loved about my job, was getting up there and being in their space. So I can really see, like, what is it that they're interested in, and what is it that they're doing, and how can I best provide services, not just to the students, but also to the teachers on site. And again, just another reason why I think having the school district have somebody as a member of the board can help just continue bridging that relationship. Other outreach opportunities will be definitely the opportunities we will have with the book bike once we kind of get that down. Once it's ordered and I can stop thinking about artwork on a book bike, the next that is going to be scheduling some form of a meeting, maybe with some key partners in town. So the food pantry, also the civic club, right, the farmers market, the community campus, and bringing us all together, the school district, and saying, so I have this amazing resource to offer now. I can bring the library to you, to your location. When can I do that, and how can I do that so that I'm reaching as many community members as I can? So that might look like events, whether it's the farmers market or a harvest festival down the road, or whatever that might look like. And then the other one that I hope for, and what I would really like to see, is working with youth services and being able to take the book bike and take the library out into a community space, be it, you know, just up by the water tower maybe for the day, and then it's like, oh, here's the library is going to be at the water tower on this particular day, so I've never thought about visiting the library. Maybe I go and I check it out, or look, the library's handing out free books over by the water tower, and really identifying spaces where we can do that, and thinking outside the box of the people can't get to the library Monday through Thursday during our hours, or maybe they can't get there before we close at 5 o'clock. So when can we take the library to them in their neighborhoods? And that's really kind of the place I want to get to. Again, that's going to take some time, and that takes staffing, right? So I have to be very aware of that as well. So as I continue to build in and justify my needs, it's either going to mean prioritization, or it's going to mean how can I request staffing to allot for those opportunities as well. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about when I'm thinking outreach, which is kind of where that second part of the ARPA grant was really focused on, not just digital services, but community services. And thinking outside Willamina too. I can't reiterate that message enough, that we serve a bigger populace than just what's inside city limits. So we've got so many community members and students and farmers who live outside of town. So really trying to think of ways that we can connect with them and let them know that we're here to help them just as much as we are the person who lives across the street. Yes, Will.
One small thing, if and when classes come down to visit the library, having a suggestion box. I'm sure you've run into them before. And also, it might be a good thing to have one for all the time.
Yes, thank you, Will. Yes, and so that you guys know too, per state guidelines, and expectations, I do have to have a bare minimum of a survey available to hand out at any time that somebody wants to give us feedback. And we do have that survey, and we have that survey being revamped right at the moment by one of our teen volunteers, because ours is very outdated and very small, of all things. So, but yeah, some way for people to give us feedback is definitely always welcome, but also needed. And then also having a platform, a digital platform, again, that people can offer that information as well will be essential. Again, just speaking to why our website needs to get updated so that we can offer forms and services of that nature as well. But yes, thank you, Will.
That could also be included if you make visits to the school, to a classroom at the school.
Mhm. Surveys are very crucial in library land. So yes. Anybody else have any questions about where we have been, where we are, and kind of where we're going forward? No? Okay. Well, oh yes, Mrs. Steinberg.
Well, how about the winter festival? Is that the winter celebration? Is that anything that's on the horizon, or have you thought about that, or maybe wait till next year again?
Yeah, no, I know it's right. Those decisions are not coming easily right now.
Right.
So, and of course, anybody who's ever been to a winter celebration, which I know Mrs. Steinberg has, Capola, you have been, Tyler, you have been, we do it big, and I really hope to return to some level of big, maybe not as big, but some level, because again, that winter celebration is all about bringing people together and engagement and activities and hands-on. So this year, again, we're probably going to pass on the winter celebration part, the in-person type event. However, I will be working with Richie to make sure we're providing some substitute, I guess you could say, again, this year, much like we did last year with one of our crafts and activities we sent out. I think we sent out 3 books, even I think to the kiddos, if I can remember correctly. Miss Nicole was just on top of things so fluidly last winter. So yes, I've definitely been thinking about that a lot, definitely, and we all miss those events. But again, that paves the way for opportunities. We hosted our first 2 winter celebrations down at the community campus. I take that back, our second and third one. Our first one was in-house, and that's when I realized I needed more space. So making sure that we're having those relationships so that we can look at bigger venues, because we just don't have the space here, right? So if it down the road that means utilizing the campus again, or working with the school district in their auditorium, because it would be nice to bring that event back, but also be able to spread people out, because I think one of the things we should be cautious of moving forward too is, so say we offer that event, but knowing that people don't necessarily have that drive to return to those events either. So how can we make sure we reach them and not making those events just about the people who can come or want to come, but making sure we're connecting with those who maybe don't even feel comfortable coming anymore. So again, thinking of ways to be inclusive of everybody. So that probably will look a lot like, here's our event, but here's the take-home version of that event if you would prefer to, which it does create more work, but at the same time, those are our patrons, those are our library families that we're just trying to make sure we're being very aware of where they're at and their place and time as well. So. Yes.
Do you think you would have the need for a Christmas raffle basket, or do you think that would fly since a lot of people aren't actually on the premises?
You know, I think those definitely do better when people are in person and can see those things. And not to say we don't have people on premises. We are serving people. I think last week, just on Wednesday alone, because I was just flipping through the numbers real fast, we saw 40-something people, 43 people that day. So even though like we're not letting people flood into the library and we're trying to manage the number of people in the library, people are utilizing the library. So I don't want anybody to think nobody's coming to the library, because they are. But I just wish that there had been an opportunity, and it was just a missed opportunity, which just means we can do better next time. Again, with our digital platforms, that we can kind of create ways that we can do our fundraising outside the box, that we don't have to rely on our four walls almost to do our fundraising efforts. So that's kind of one of our hurdles right now in moving forward with any fundraising. And not to say that I'm not interested in doing any on-site fundraising, but I'm also trying to be very cautious of where my staff and I are also at mentally and physically as well,
Sure.
too. So
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? And then I promise I'll stop talking. No, I did have two more things I wanted to share with you guys as part of my report, if I may. And that is last month I reported on the grants that I'm working on. And I'm really excited to share, as part of the Astronomy Club, which is, we used funds from the OCF grant for part of that grant. That portion, we're funding the Astronomy Club, and we're getting in more space and earth science resources and kits. So the first thing we have is our new SkyMaster binoculars available for lending. And we have 2 of these. And then the one that I almost have ready, and now I have to work with CCRLS to get it into the system, is our new Measuring Light in the Night. And it is a citizen science kit that, and we'll have 2 of these that people can check out. Teachers can check out. I mean, this is really meant for, like, it could be an individual person thing, or it can be a group thing. So we'll have 2 of those. And then with the amazing help of Tyler, we have our beautiful digital art station up and running. So minus a few simple software additions and getting the kids a little bit calibrated on use. I think they're anxious for it. I mean, that's all there is to say about it. They're excited for the abilities and opportunities they have using that station. And then I am this close to finalizing my kits for having 2 telescopes available for lending as well. So we'll have so many things for people to do. So a good part of the outreach is going to be communicating with our community on all the things we have for them to do, so that they can come back in and enjoy all those things. So I'm done talking, I promise, unless you have questions. Will?
The night watch thing. Up in the forest, if you're working with the forest department and you're using these radios, whatever area you're going into, they notify you of where the dead spots are or where you can actually get good reception. It would be nice to have something like that. I'm thinking that actually maps out Willamina to a certain degree, and it can make general comments about certain areas. Or maybe not. Maybe that's a good idea, but can't be applied very easily.
Well, let's, when we get a chance, let's chat some more about that. Will, I think it would be kind of neat to have some local, right, resources. And it kind of makes me think of another project that Ken is working on as well. So yeah, let's chat more about that and see how we could come up with, or maybe there's actually already a kit out there somewhere that somebody's put together that we could easily adapt, much like these citizen science kits, which we'll be adapting more of these over the course of the future. I'm passionate about our dark skies, which is why I put the light pollution kits together first. I'll be honest, it was very selfish of me and the Astronomy Club. So, um, yes, I'm always interested in knowing again what kits people might have feedback right on, and I do know too that the teachers are eager for these things, because when I delivered the STEM week packs up to the teachers in May, one of the things that I got back was, when can we get more? When will you do this again? So I know this is an opportunity that can grow. So yeah, I'm excited.
Very cool.
Any more questions for me? And then I can turn it back over to the next thing. Okay. Well, I'm done with reports on my end, Will. Thank you for letting me take up so much time.
Thank you very much. Excellent reports. Informative, yes, and encouraging. Next, we have library board member reports. Do we have any library board member reports at this time? I would like to take one little comment, a few seconds, and just comment on a quorum. We have 7 board members. To meet a quorum, we need at least 4 members. That's it.
We do have quorum. I
Okay.
believe Mrs. Skyberg had something to add, Will.
I'd just like to say, Sarah, I am so grateful for your energy. I just am just so very grateful. And on behalf, yes, on behalf of the council, I'd like to thank you, and certainly the board members and all the volunteers we have for the library. It's very, very amazing. It's an outstanding little library, as you well know, and I'll certainly be glad to report back to the full council on next month's meeting what you're up to. It's a lot. I've written it down. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skyberg. So we have no new library board member reports. I'm going to be moving on to unfinished business. We have one comment from Sarah Frost, I believe, a follow-up on personal email use.
Yes. So
Sarah?
in response to the request that was, or discussion and request that was made last month about what it looks like for library board members utilizing personal accounts for library board business versus if they had specific library board emails. So I did have a discussion with Kenna, and I wanted to let you know that we did hash it out. And so right now, I'm so sorry. I just lost where I was reading this. Oh my goodness. This is what happens when I get a lot of reports in front of my face. So I apologize. I've got it right here. My apologies. So the city is currently somewhat restricted in the number of email accounts they can have in our system, which I think I had maybe indicated that was potentially a problem. And so the other half of that is if they are on the system, then all emails from that account become a record and are retained in accordance with the state public records law, where right now it's just, if an email comes from me, that information, that email thread, if requested, would be part of any record, right? So what we came up with was, since the city really doesn't have the capacity, I guess really is what it is right now, to really oversee adding additional emails for library board members. And it's not to say that that's not a possibility down the road. I think we're going to just chew on it a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better term, and kind of critical think and problem solve, because just like with anything else, those come with licenses, right? So, and I'm not quite sure how that all works with our vendor and what that looks like as far as the Microsoft account setups that they do. So I, of course, as I offered last time, would be more than happy to set up any separate accounts that anybody would prefer using. It would probably just look like a generic library board, whoever your member name is, at Gmail. So we could definitely do that if you would prefer that your personal email address was not utilized or accessible by the general public. So that is my report back on that. So if you guys want to think on that a little bit, and again, I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and talk this through more with Kenna. I just wanted to make sure I did have an opportunity to chat with her briefly about it before I sat down with you to give you a report back on it. My apologies. So yeah, so that's my report back on that. And I'm happy, again, like I said, to sit down and go over emails with any of you at any time if you would prefer. Questions about that, or questions that you would like me to follow up on that going forward? Tyler.
The city is going to be redoing their website, right?
We are working on that.
Is there an ETA for that?
My grant is paying for it. We are also paying a current staff member extra hours outside their normal job duties, which means it will happen when it happens. It is in progress though, but just like with all of us, we just have so many other things on our plate.
Yeah.
And Ashley is amazing, and she's already done some amazing work to get the ball rolling a lot farther than where we've been the last couple of years waiting to get this project moving forward. So she's already kind of given us all documents to look at that really talks about the flow, I guess, and what essential services we need identified under our branches of the website. So, so my grant, the way it works out is it's basically paying for her to have up to 8 hours a week of her dedicated work time already that she can work on the website services. But she's also coming out of a heavy public works time. So as winter comes upon us, she'll have some more time to dedicate to the website, where she hasn't had since I received the grant in July. So the ETA, I would like to see most of the work done by the spring, because that is when I have to report back on the grant. And that's kind of the information I've given to Kenna, and in talking with Ashley moving forward. But it's kind of more work will be done on it soon. I just don't know what our exact launch date hopes to be. And it's possible that Kenna has that information right now and I just don't. So, but I do know that it's really relying on other staff members, because we're just one person at a time doing a lot. So, is there's a way that you think that could kind of solve some of this maybe?
Well, I was curious if it would change who was providing the emails, because I get my email addresses through my website provider company, and I was just curious if that would change how the emails work.
That's a good question, because I know that, like, for us at the library, it would be so handy to have a general email for the library as a whole that staff could access, versus just relying on people just pegging one person at a time, and then us maybe getting the email from the person. So that's a really good question that I'm going to ask Tyler. So we're currently right now, the city uses Premises as their third-party vendor. They're a contract service out of McMinnville for a lot of our networking and technology needs. So I'm not sure how all that technology piece is impacted. And honestly, I'm not even sure who we purchased our new platform through for the website. So those are good questions for me to ask and be more knowledgeable on, Tyler. So thank you for putting that in my head for when I do turn around and meet with Ashley to kind of go over some of the library part of the website. So
Cool.
yes, thank you. Any other questions about the email update? Kay Pola.
Hi, everyone. So I was just wondering when the library website is updated, is that when our emails would be published? Is that the timeline there?
Yeah, and it's not so much about being published as much as I think the concern is they are available and accessible. So if there was a public records request on a particular thing and they needed to pull emails, say from my email thread, there could be your emails could be attached to that, right? Depending on what the request is. We don't publish your information specifically right now. The only information that I believe is even currently published right now is Mayor Burr, and I don't even know, I'd have to jump on the website right now to see if each council member is even listed with their contact information. And I'll be honest with you too, some of this might fall under the information we will cover when we look at all the new updated state guidelines for library boards, when we start reviewing our charter and reviewing that document I linked in a previous email going to the ORS for library boards, because I think there might also be a difference between a board that has oversight or a board that is advisory, right? So, and this board is considered an advisory board, where I don't know as though we would need to necessarily have to publish, like full publish, like here's the website and these are all of our board members and here's their home phone numbers, right? So I don't think that we would ever go that far. But again, those are all very good questions. And so a lot of the reasons we need to look at the charter and we need to look at the ORS is because there are state minimum standards that a public library has to meet in order to continue to hold the title and status of a public library. And not so much right now, but I imagine when they get another new state librarian in, they have continuously been looking at legislation surrounding that, because right now there's just a lot of guidelines that we have to meet, but they would like to see some of that turned into actual law that we would need to meet too. So it's best, we've been behind, and I've been working very diligently for the last 5 years to get us caught up to just even the bare minimum standards, but there's a lot of standards actually that the document is very, very huge. And there's the bare minimum, and then of course there's the exceeds expectations, which you're going to get when you get some of your larger library systems. So that's not us. I'll just be honest right now. That's got a lot of energy. I don't think I have that much energy. So.
Well, thanks for the clarification on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I guess if we're all done with unfinished business, then we're going to move on to new business. Reading it, November 16th meeting next month, the presentation creating safe spaces for our teens, library services and staffing. That'll be 30 minutes and question and answer to follow, so we can look forward to that. Also, for your notification, December 21st meeting, we are taking a recess. And at this time, I assume that we are going to continue meeting in this manner until further notice, meaning on the internet.
Yeah, so Will, if I could real quick, just to give some clarification on these new business items. I was seeking the board to welcome the idea of having that presentation for the November meeting in place of a normal agenda. The presentation will be done by myself, my youth services coordinator, Richie Guscott, and we will also be having some of our teens we've been working with for the past few months joining us. And then I will also have Derek Trombley, who is our new code and community liaison officer, joining us for that as well, and follow up to a meeting that we all had with YCAP services. And really the presentation is about what we've been able to do for our teens over the course of the last couple months, and really looking at how we can get to a level to where we can provide them with services on an ongoing basis when looking at the needs of the youth in our community. And so that's really what that would be. There will be a couple of students here. Some of them are going to prepare written statements because they can't be here or don't necessarily feel comfortable being here. Teenagers, silly things. But I could go on about this for far too long, and not to pick at Tyler, but I mean, he's been here a few times when we've had these teens, and we give them this space on Sundays. We don't open to the general public. This is a teen safe space on Sundays. And it has been absolutely amazing to see so many of these kids thrive in this environment. Their creativity has just been exploding. And they want to do all of these amazing projects for the library. They're painting minifigures. They want to do animation. They want to do podcasts. And we're able through this grant to provide them all these amazing tools and resources and limited staffing. And we really want to just share their story, I guess, more than anything with you. So that it just continues to be, I guess, at the forefront. So I would like to take your November meeting and turn it into that presentation, if the board would so be willing to allow for that.
Yay.
I
Yeah.
motion to add that to the next meeting.
I'll second it.
And so it's moved. It's going to be involved in our November 16th meeting.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Anything else on that?
I don't have anything else. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask. But I think it'll be something good for us all to hear. And it's the first time I've been able to get these kids to come speak to a group where their voices need to be heard, right? So, because after this, I'm going to put them in Kenna's office, telling them how much they need us. So, luckily, Kenna will actually be at that meeting, so I won't do that to her. But
Great. So, moving on to number 5, future planning discussion. Which project would the board like to review first? Updating the library board charter or library move to free fine, and a timeline for such. So November's kind of tied up. December, we're not going to be having a meeting.
I'm
So
most excited
we could
about
start
going
having a
fine.
discussion.
go ahead, Tyler.
And I was just gonna say, I'm most excited about going fine free. I don't know how everyone else is feeling about that.
Well, I think there's a couple of options we could do here. And I think more than anything, I just kind of wanted to get the thinking process rolling so we can really think about these projects and act on them instead of them always just sitting there in the future planning area of the agenda. So Tracy has volunteered to help pick apart the wording and updating needs of the charter. And he's great with words. It's what he does as a professor. So I think, and then of course, moving to that fine free and really investigating and investing the work into that is crucial. And we could absolutely work on these projects at the same time. I would be interested, typically in the years past, it has been okay, Sarah, so would you write something up and then give it to us? And then we'll let you know if we're good with it or not, which is fine. However, I would love if a couple of board members would be interested in championing these projects and working with me to oversee some of the work that goes along with it. I worry that if you guys rely on me too long, it just might take a little bit longer right now, unfortunately. But I think that if a couple of people on each project could work together to hash out some of the details for each, I have so many resources and access to so much information. We could jumpstart both of these, and I would love to see us jumpstart both of these, but I think it just might take more of a group effort, which, yeah, if Tracy's willing to help kind of step in and help on the board or on the charter, and if Tyler, if you would be interested and willing to kind of help jumpstart the fine free, and then if other board members wanted to almost kind of work into focus groups for each of those, where people could be looking at documents depending on their interest. We could probably hash something out over the course of January, February, March, and get something worked on and finalized going into the spring so that it could kind of go into effect for the next fiscal year. That might be very aggressive in my thinking, and a lot of that would just depend on the time commitments of everybody and their work that they're willing to do. But what I do know about being in library land, something that can start at the beginning of a fiscal year works perfect for tracking on impact. So that would be a best case scenario for us. So yes. I don't really know where we go from here. I could make a recommendation. Will, if you would humor me, that each board member think about what area or which project they would be most interested in helping on, and I could coordinate those groups, and then get one group working through email, and then another group working through email, and then let Tracy and Tyler really drive some of the work and conversations in those emails to putting together some work on the charter and a fine free policy to recommend to the city. Thought?
I think that sounds, oh, you want to go ahead, Will?
No, you go ahead.
I think that sounds like a good plan. It also seems like the fine free thing is happening sort of all across the country right now. And it really seems like we should be able to find a library or two who have already done it, and we can just steal all of their good hard work.
I did reach out to McMinnville already and asked them for all of their good hard work, because they serve a lot of the same patrons, and I just haven't gotten it from them just yet. But Tyler makes an excellent point, and if you go back to the state report, something to note is that we have been essentially fine free for the entire pandemic year of 2020-2021, but we did have other revenues, which is typically fines, fees, and donations. We had no fines or fees in 2020, 2021. So you can see that our donations outdid the previous year's fines, fees, and donations. So there is definitely some storytelling that goes along with when libraries go fine free that become part of that document and that presentation. But as far as what fines contribute to a library, sometimes they cost libraries more money than they bring in. So I definitely, we are seeing it when New York Public Library System announced that they were going fine free. It set off this domino effect of libraries saying, well, we have been fine free, or we better go fine free now, because if New York can do it, then I guess we could do it too. So, and there's always been this nervousness, especially amongst smaller libraries, to go fine free because they worry about that source of revenue. However, it's not a reliable source of revenue. So, So yeah. Thank you, Tyler, for bringing that up. So
I was reading a thing about Chicago going fine free, because I think they've been fine free for over a year now, and they were saying that they the number of books that have come back that have been checked out for like 5 years or more has been astounding. So just the amount of like they had much fewer losses after that, because people would bring back books instead of just being like, well, I'll never go to the library again because I owe them $50.
And it happens, and we've seen it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So good. That's what I will do then when I send out the next email here shortly within the next 2 weeks about library board business. I will ask board members to report back to me on which project they would be most interested in helping. And then I will champion Tracy and Tyler to oversee those projects. So thank you.
Thank you. The next item, number 6, announcements. This is going to be in the future called public input. Sir, would you again like to comment on that?
Yeah, I realized I missed the boat on this, and I apologize again. For some reason, in years past, we've always had a space for public input. And then when we kind of went to this virtual space, it just kind of went away. And not that we get a lot of public input, but once I get these teens in here and I can start really encouraging people to be interested, especially in some of the discussions we're having or the new things we're doing, it would be so great to see more of our public, our community members coming to our library board meetings. So I'm hoping to change this back into the public input phase. And typically what that means is if somebody has something that they would like to bring to the library board or ask about at the library board level, we would give them their 2-minute timer to say something, or if it's in the Zoom area, the space, they would be welcome to chat it in, and I could share that information for them, much like when our volunteer Loree has attended, and she'll put stuff in the chat and I relay that information for her as she has been our public input for a long time. So again, as part of just those outreach measures, I would really love to start getting them in here, because then they can start giving us that feedback that we're constantly trying to get. So if you, and again, I would do this in the past as well, have anybody that you ever would like to invite to a library board meeting, I welcome that. I encourage that because again, the more people who know about what we're doing, they're going to tell somebody. And that's what we have to rely on sometimes. So public input starting next month. We may not have anybody there, but we're going to make that time commitment for it.
Excellent. Number 7. Do we have any questions or feedback before the end of the meeting? Do I hear a motion for an adjournment?
Was that you, Tyler?
I silently motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
Motion is passed to adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, for making the quorum today.
Yes. Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
good week. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.